So today we are talking about stress, different theories about stress and the effects about stress, and oh my gosh, I'm so stressed out. No, not really. Here's the deal. A lot of people give stress really an unjustified bad rap. They don't like being stressed. Being stressed is no fun. Oh my gosh, I should do everything in my power to avoid being stressed. When in fact, that's not really how you are designed. You're designed to deal with stress, and sometimes stress isn't necessarily such a bad thing. So, first of all, stress can have a really big, significant impact on your body, your overall health, including things like your cardiovascular system, your digestive system, your psychological well-being, even things like your reproductive health. But that all has to do with long-term or chronic stress. Chronic stress is going to be very different than just the everyday stressors that kind of get us through our day. And really, stress in the short term can serve a very important purpose. It energizes us. It kind of kicks our butt into gear, literally, to get things done. And so stress in the short term can be really important for us from a physical as well as psychological standpoint. Where stress does really become problematic is when it's in the long term. It's a chronic stress. It's something that we are having difficulty overcoming. That's where we can see these really significant effects, especially on our overall health, taking place. So, for example, I have a picture here of President Barack Obama. Pretty notorious job in being relatively stressful, especially for this poor guy. He had quite a bit of stress dealing with. You can actually physically see some of the changes that took place when he began office to when he left office. This is a pretty normal sort of physiological experience when a person is going through a massive amount of stress. Probably most notably has to do with his hair color, that his hair significantly goes gray. Now, is that all due to stress? Probably not. I mean, there's definitely going to be some aging and genetics and things like that happening. But we do know that stress can have a significant impact on physical features, especially things like wrinkles that, our face can become wrinkly. I saw once something about how much Abraham Lincoln's face had become wrinkled in the time that he was president. So looking at stress, we know from an outwardly standpoint, it can certainly take its toll on our physical health. However, what's happening inside of our bodies tends to be more important. That when we are affected by chronic stress, we have major issues with our cardiovascular system because stress is putting, of course, a lot of work on our heart, and our heart as a muscle pumping blood through the rest of my body. That my heart, if I'm overworking it, essentially, it could, in fact, wear out to some extent. And so when I am put under a massive amount of stress, my heart essentially is working harder and faster than it was intended to, and that can actually shorten my overall lifespan. We also know that stress can do a number on our digestive systems, making things back up a little bit or move a little too freely, which is never pleasant. But then, of course, our psychological well-being is affected by stress. We suffer from mental fatigue, difficulty concentrating, putting in focus, essentially getting things done. We become overwhelmed when we're dealing with this chronic stress. So let's look at what actually happens when I go through a stressful situation. So we come to a doctor by the name of Hans Selye, and Selye is interested in the body's overall experience with stress and identifies that the body goes through the same sort of process regardless of what kind of stressful situation that we are in, that the human body will always go through what becomes known as general adaptation syndrome, or sometimes just referred to as GAS. General adaptation syndrome is a three-part system in which my body is going to relate or adapt to the stressful situation at hand. It's utilizing our natural fight or flight response as a way to attempt to bring us back to our happy-go-lucky state of homeostasis, where things are nice and balanced. Because, of course, the body likes being balanced. It likes putting us back into that nice, happy medium. Okay, so everything is going along fine. I'm happy. I'm healthy. I'm experiencing homeostasis. And then, boom, some sort of stressful situation is going to take place. Let's say I'm walking home from school and, haha, there is a bear in my way. Well, if I were to see a bear, my natural response is, of course, to trigger my sympathetic nervous system. My sympathetic nervous system is going to cause things like my pupils to dilate, my heart rate is going to increase, my digestion is going to slow down, and of course, I'm going to get the sensation that I have to pee because my bladder is relaxed. So right now, in general adaptation syndrome, I am in what's known as the alarm stage. Alarm stage, or what we typically think of as fight or flight. I've got a bear standing in my way. Am I going to fight the bear, or am I going to run away from the bear? These are my choices. Or I might freeze. That's my other, third choice. But I'm in this alarm stage. Once my body is realizing the fact that I am either going to fight or flee, I now am going to start moving into my resistance stage. So during alarm, all of my nervous system, of course, is going to be really activated with that sympathetic nervous system. It's going to trigger my endocrine system to start putting out my stress hormones, especially including a stress hormone known as cortisol. So now, as I kind of get over my initial shock of, the bear standing in my path or whatever my stressful situation is, now my body's got to push through and persevere through whatever stressful situation that I am now encountering. And so we refer to this as the resistance stage. So long as that the resistance stage isn't a really, really long endeavor, I'm probably going to be just fine from this initial stressful event. Where things become problematic is when my resistance stage becomes prolonged, and that it's something that I'm not really equipped to handle, or at least from a physical standpoint, my body isn't as equipped to handle. Because eventually what's going to happen is that as I'm resisting, I'm persevering, I'm pulling through, I am running miles and miles away from the bear that, is initially in my path. Eventually, my body's no longer handling that, and I'm going to start moving into this exhaustion stage. What goes up must come down, and the same thing is true with my physical body as I'm moving through a stressful situation. So here I start beginning to go into this exhaustion stage. I'm starting to lose my ability to combat that stress, and that what's really going to start happening is that my body wants to return to homeostasis. Now, if my stressful situation is over with, I can move through this exhaustion stage, which I will probably be exhausted. I will be fatigued. But if I can sleep, if I can eat something and re-energize myself, I'm probably going to be A-okay. But when I can't do that, when I'm still having to persist through that resistance stage, my exhaustion is going to fall even further. And that's where I start going into this breakdown or this burnout kind of stage. One of the most notorious aspects of the exhaustion stage is that it's going to weaken my immune system, meaning that as my body is putting forward so much energy to help me resist and overcome my stressful situation, there's less energy to fight off bacterial and viral infections that are attacking my body all the time. And so it's a pretty normal occurrence for people who experience a stressful situation, that after that stressful situation takes place, they tend to get sick. And the types of sicknesses that they incur are going to be infections that are either bacterial or viral. And of course, if it's a viral infection, there's not a whole lot we can do for it. Your body just has to fight off that virus. So any student can tell you that, they've got massive amounts of exams and studying and things like that. It's really normal that once all of that stress of getting through the exams and getting all those papers written and presentations made and all that sort of thing, that suddenly, oh, they're on vacation, but wait a minute, now they feel like they're dying because they have this horrible cold. Well, that was you going through general adaptation syndrome. As your body was attempting to push you through the resistance stage and get you to overcome your stressful situation, it had less resources to fight off any types of infections that might enter your body. And so thus, your immune system was weakened and you're falling into this kind of burnout stage of exhaustion. The good news is that, so long as that stress doesn't keep coming back, you're probably going to be just fine. But it's where we have that prolonged amount of stress that we really start to suffer and that our overall health can suffer from it. That's why it's really important that we learn good strategies to help us effectively deal with stressful situations. People who are able to look at their stressful situations as temporary and will seek out activities that help them to reduce their stress are typically better at managing general adaptation syndrome and not finding themselves falling into this burnout aspect of the exhaustion stage, and also helps to bolster that immune system so they're not as likely to develop various types of diseases because of their immune system. So that's where things like physical exercise, whether that be just as simple as taking a walk, practicing yoga, doing a run, spending time with our family and friends, and even doing things that we find enjoyable. Maybe it's a little bit of vegging out in front of the TV or spending some time playing games. That's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if we're using it in a balance to help us maintain homeostasis or to help us resist and get through that general adaptation syndrome. So, in the short term, stress can definitely be a good thing, helping to energize us. Where we see problems, of course, is when we have prolonged amounts of stress and we have difficulty overcoming. Thank you and have a great day.